Okay, everyone, thank you for coming on to our webinar today. For those that don't know me, my name is Michael Ibrahim, Program Manager with the Mass Cultural Council, specifically our Cultural Investment Portfolio, which is our grant program at the Council that serves our nonprofit organizations through direct grants and services. And so the services side is what we're here to help you with today. We are here to talk about the two major federal acts, the Family First Act and the CARES Act. And Sandi McKinley, the Senior Vice President from the Nonprofit Finance Fund for the Advisory Services, will be here to lead this webinar. Just a few order of housekeeping items. Number one, this webinar is being recorded. So if something went by quickly or you would like to share this webinar with someone who was not able to make the call today, we will be recording it. And actually right after this, we're downloading it, editing, and we're gonna send you the link right after. As soon as we can put it on YouTube, we will send this out to you. In addition, my teammate, Kaylin King, Program Officer on the team, is monitoring the chat box. She will put up some links as we go along that are relevant to the discussion. The first one that we're gonna put up is a link to our Dropbox. So you will be able to find the slide for today, along with a template that Sandy's gonna mention as she goes along. And with that, Sandi, feel free to take it.
Thank you, Michael. Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here. And thank you for coming to learn about the federal programs and nonprofit eligibility. I know that this is something that, given the time the time and environment that we are in, that we are all very curious about. Nonprofit Finance Fund has been watching legislation, and we have been watching these programs very carefully. We are thrilled that the federal government has opened up many of these programs to the nonprofit sector, something that is not necessarily happened in the past to this extent. And at the same time, it is something that that is new, and it is new for the government. So we are wading into programs that are typically designed for our for-profit brothers and sisters, and that is presenting its own set of new experiences and at times challenges. One thing that I will say at the outset is that these programs are very much live and changing day to day, and we will try to keep up. We are trying to keep up to date with the changes. What I am presenting to you is up to date as of this morning, April 6th. And I will be directing you toward resources that are getting updated daily. So sharing a little bit about Nonprofit Finance Fund, but I won't dwell on our background. Feel free to review that at your leisure. And then I will just talk a little bit about the environment in which we find ourselves. Unlike say a typical market disruption like a recession or a depression, or a prolonged strike, you know, a pandemic really doesn't affect the nonprofit sector in an ordered way, so to speak, right? So there isn't a typical order of operations like there is with a market disruption, nor is there, what we could say is a kind of a planned recovery. Unlike a natural disaster where an event like a flood or a hurricane hits, it's a one-time event, and then there's a recovery period afterwards. We are still in the middle of it, and we don't know when quite it will end, and nor do we expect it to end all at once. Suddenly we wake up one day and all of this is gone. And we recognize that, because of that, we are looking at different organizations being impacted differently. Some organizations are operational, and they're able to operate and deliver on their mission as they had in the past. Some organizations are able to deliver on their mission in some way, and a lot of organizations are truly paused and unable to deliver on their mission at all in the same way. And what we know is the majority of arts and cultural organizations are in that paused environment. And we recognize that, and we want to be able to share with you today some of the resources that may be available to you, and then throughout this webinar series, ways that you might be able to address some of the challenges that you are facing so that we can get you set to be able to recover when the crisis is over. And FF, we think about the crisis in 3 phases: response, recovery, and resiliency. Response being the phase that we're in right now, when we are really triaging. Triaging what is happening. We are live. We are live reacting. Every day is different, and I think we can all agree that last week was different from the week before, and we don't know what's to come tomorrow. Recovery is, what happens when we come back online? How will we adapt to the change? What will social distancing mean to us? What will it mean as we start to bring our organizations back online, and when kind of money starts flowing through the system? And then resiliency: what happens the next time there is a crisis? Not just a recession, maybe not just a natural disaster, but something maybe like a pandemic or something related to climate change. So we're really thinking there in the long term. But I suspect you're not here for context, so I really want to dive in and talk about the available federal programs. Today, I want to talk about really the second and third acts passed by the feds. The second being the Families First Act, and the third being the CARES Act. I'm going to go relatively quickly through the Families First Act, but I do want to touch upon it because we've gotten many questions about it, and there seems to be some anxiety about a couple of provisions in that act. So I will go through that and give some resources. And the second, in the CARES Act, everyone really wants to hear about the Paycheck Protection Program, but there are also 3 other programs that I will touch on that are available to organizations. There is much more in the CARES Act, but these 4 that I have listed here are the ones that are truly applicable to our nonprofits. So diving in, the Family First Act has 3 major provisions really worth noting. It was really designed to stabilize family paychecks by allowing, the first provision was allowing 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave, requiring employers with fewer than 500 employees to pay 2 weeks of sick leave at the employee's regular rate. If that employee, him or herself was impacted, and then at a reduced rate if a family member was impacted, including if they were caring for a child whose school was closed. So as we can see, that would be very much a change, even here in Massachusetts, where all of our schools were closed, but requiring our employers to pay for 2 weeks of emergency paid sick leave. Then there is the Family and Medical Leave Act, which expands the eligibility of the workforce who can take 12 weeks of job protected leave. And this comes after the emergency paid sick leave, and employees would then receive 2/3, a proportional amount of their pay, up to $200 a day. And then, organizations with fewer than 25 employees had some a little bit different rubric, recognizing the financial burden that would put on them. Finally, there is a program in there for reimbursable payroll tax credits. In order to help employers offset the cost of these programs, the government was allowing employers to receive a tax credit, so a credit against paying your quarterly taxes for these costs. And Anyway, essentially, you would not have to pay your quarterly tax bill. You would get credited for the amount that you would have to pay out. The National Council of Nonprofits has an excellent information sheet on the Family First Act and really what the major provisions are here on these three things. But I'm going to share with you some of the considerations and concerns that came out in our conversations with nonprofits. And I think we kind of all saw it in that these provisions required organizations to pay employees for leave. And we might, our organizations are typically cash strapped, and organizations might not have the cash to pay out. And that to pay out. So organizations might find themselves very cash poor or unable to pay out. And then the tax credits, the timing of those tax credits might not help us. It might be kind of, in a way, too little, too late. So this was a big concern of ours when we first heard about this. However, there is a provision that from the Department of Labor that says if our workplace is closed and work can't be done remotely, these provisions no longer apply in the same way. So especially for performing arts organizations, making the assumption that your work can't be done in the same way, it's likely that you fall under this umbrella. And believe it or not, the Department of Labor has the best source of information on this, and I have included those resources for you. So if our workplace is closed and the work can't be done remotely, these provisions no longer apply to us in the same way. So there are those resources for you and considering the Families First Act. I've also linked you to the National Council of Nonprofits. National Council of Nonprofits is really absolutely stellar in keeping up to the minute information and updating these info sheets. So we use them every day, and we stay in very close contact with folks on the front lines to make sure that our sector is getting the most, our clients and our sector is getting the most accurate information as possible. So moving forward to the CARES Act, we have 4 elements that I'll talk about today. Like I said, there are more things included in the CARES Act, but these are really the 4 that are front of mind for organizations right now. The first is the Paycheck Protection Program, which I will call the PPP because it's shorter. And if you've been reading anything about this, and how can you not, the Small Business Administration is providing forgivable loans to small businesses and nonprofits with 500 or fewer employees. It's important to say that nonprofits are thrown into the pool with every other with for-profit organizations that also have fewer than 500 employees. So think of your local pizza joint and store down the road is also eligible to receive these funds. So just putting that context out there that this is a program for all all businesses that have 500 or fewer employees. The conditions of the loan are that in order for it to be forgiven, the organization must keep employees on the payroll for 8 weeks after the origination of the loan, and the money must be used for payroll. 75% of the loan must be used for payroll, and the rest can go to mortgage interest, not the principal, the interest, rent, or utilities. Any disqualified expenses will be converted into a 2-year loan at 1% annual interest. And the amount of the loan is calculated. And it's calculated using, the base calculation is 2.5 times the average monthly payroll up to $10 million, whichever is less. Don't worry, we will help you think about how you calculate the 2.5 times that average monthly payroll. Seems to be, I mean, that seems to be the kind of the hardest part of this application, is thinking about like, what is 2.5 times my average monthly payroll, but we will help you. All right. we really wanted to help you think through what you need to do to apply. I also wanted to try to think about how we could divide this application process into discernible tasks, that if you were looking to spread out tasks among different people, that they could be, that you could do so. So we have the assembling of documents, we have finding a lender, we have getting your board to issue a resolution, we have calculating your average monthly payroll, and then we have the application itself. Over to the right, on the right side of the screen, I have a number of resources. I'm calling them trusted references and resources. You know, I love seeing the signs around my town where it says we're all in this together. And those of us who are consultants in the nonprofit sector, those of us who are financial intermediaries or CDFIs, we have really all pulled together and pulled our resources, recognizing that that we are all, you know, really serving the sector as a whole. So I am happy to, we are sharing each other's resources freely and giving credit where credit is due. So I have resources here, certainly from my organization, Nonprofit Finance Fund, our National Council of Nonprofits, our friends at Candid and Grant Space. I included, you know, some of their emergency financial resources, independent sector, and then our FMA, which is a accounting consultancy, has an amazing toolkit with really practical information and advice and forms that you know, I highly recommend. So I will be giving you resources and links to those resources that should provide you everything that you need to know about applying. So let's start first with assembling our documents, right? So it is a little bit of a hunt and gather. You're going to need the SBA application, and I'll give you the link to that. Then you're going to need detailed payroll data listing each employee, listing everything about every employee, with compensation, benefit, taxes, and just a ton of backup information. So they're going to, the way that we think, because there's not a lot of guidance that's been issued, they're going to verify the payroll is to see if you've paid taxes, you know, on looking at your payroll tax. So you're going to want to see kind of payroll tax reports filed with the IRS, your payroll reports. This program is generous in that they are considering health insurance premium payments that you've made as part of payroll, as well as retirement plan remittances. So all of that evidence by employee is going to have to be gathered. We also think, given what we are hearing and seeing, that depending on the lender that you use, that you're going to need a board resolution authorizing your application to apply for a loan. You're going to need something that shows you've made your that you've complied with government regulations, and that would be your IRS 990 form. You're going to need some financial statements, including financial information for the past 12 months, and you're going to need your organization documents, your IRS determination letter, your articles of incorporation, and your bylaws. In Massachusetts, I love this about Massachusetts, the documents with the stars can be found on the Attorney General's website. If you've made your annual report to the Attorney General, those can be downloaded. So if you are stuck working from home and don't have access to those paper files in your office, you don't have electronic copies, check the Attorney General's website and look up your organization, and you might be able to be so fortunate to download those. The next piece of applying is, I'll be honest, probably the toughest thing that we're facing right now. It's, finding a lender. This program is administered by banks and lenders that are certified by the SBA as 7A lenders. So you don't apply directly to the Small Business Administration. You apply to a local bank that has an SBA license. Ideally, your bank is a participating lender. That is the ideal situation, and that you would call your bank and they would tell you exactly how to apply. They would say, great, you are our customer. We are open. This program is open to existing customers. Talk to this person in this department. Let me transfer you. But what we are finding is that this program is rolling out in real time has not been without challenges. The program officially opened on Friday, April 3rd. For some banks, many banks still aren't open. And the process of rolling this out and getting applications, the application process up and running has been rocky at best. What's more is that some banks are choosing to only work not just with existing customers. Some are saying that they're working with existing customers, but those customers have to have special types of accounts. So it's requiring organizations to find another SBA lender. And this is incredibly frustrating to us at NFF. We find it frustrating for a number of reasons. You may have seen the press, or you may have seen things in the news about how banks are not making themselves available. Michael told me right before this call that Wells Fargo just closed its program, saying it's not taking any more applications. If your bank is not participating, or your organization does not meet your bank's requirements, our advice is to start with local and community banks. Many of those are SBA lenders. My next advice is, don't be afraid to ask for referrals and introductions from board members, community members, people who are in your network. I have included the entire list of qualified members in Massachusetts in this link. It starts on page 40 of this really long document from the SBA, so it was kind of hard to find, but I found it for you. It's on page 40, and it has every SBA lender listed by town. So that's where we are right. That's where we are right now. Moving on. We are strongly advising organizations to prepare a board resolution authorizing leadership to take out a loan. As there are no owners, right, and as as a nonprofit organization, we just want to make sure that all the I's are dotted and the T's are crossed. And a board resolution authorizing the organization to take out a loan is kind of a good financial hygiene. We have a sample resolution that we are happy to we are sharing with you. If this is something that you if you don't have or you've never done before, we have one that we're making available to the field. And just look in your bylaws to see how you pass a board resolution, and just make sure you follow that so that it's all on the up and up. But that's something that should be relatively easy to pass and work with your board chair on board president or board chair to pass the resolution. And here we go. The big math, so to speak, in calculating our average monthly payroll. So payroll is considered salary, wages, commissions, tips, but also our paid time off, our vacation, our sick, parental, family leave, medical pay, any severance pay, all of our benefits, and our state and local taxes. What is not payroll is our federal taxes, our FICA taxes, and our federal income taxes from February 15th until June 30th. Compensation to employees whose primary residence is outside of the U.S. Qualified payments under the Families First Act. So in a way, no double dipping. If you get something out of Families First, you can't kind of claim it into the PPP. 1099 and independent contractors, there's a lot of back and forth on this. In the original legislation of the CARES Act, it did include 1099, but the Treasury Department came out in its guidances last week and said 1099s are excluded. And we have reports that banks are sending back applications that include 1099s in there. I believe the reason why is that there is this program is open and available to independent contractors, and so that makes sense to me. But 1099s are not allowed according to the latest guidance. And then excess compensation for salaries over $100,000. There is only a little bit, there's little guidance on really what this means about what is included in the calculation. Specifically, if it's just salary or salary and benefits. Our advice is to check with your lender, and in the meantime, kind of calculate both so that you have that at the ready, or calculate it both ways. So I could give you the math, and then, as somebody who works in finance full time, I know, when you give people math and ask them to calculate it by hand, everybody's eyes cross. But I want to give you good news. There are numerous excellent and free calculators available to help you calculate average monthly payroll. So the FMA and the Jewish federations have spectacular calculators. They're pristine, they're beautiful. And you can just download them. They are an Excel spreadsheet, and they will walk you through everything you need to input to come up with your average monthly payroll. The AICPA, which is the CPA governing, the CPA just membership body, has an excellent calculator as well. And as you would expect, that is especially good if you have seasonal employees. So that's the calculator I recommend. If you have seasonal, part-time seasonal employees, that's the one to use. And if you ADP, if you're an ADP customer, if you have ADP that for processing your payroll, ADP has just released reports to help you with your PPP application. I meant to look at this earlier today. I have yet to kind of look and see what's included there. But from what I hear, they have done a lot of the legwork for ADP customers with these calculations, and I have included that link to ADP on this, on what they are giving to their to the ADP customers. All right. Finally, applying. So the government says that this application takes 10 minutes, and that's true. It probably takes about 10 minutes to fill out. It's a very short two-page application, and here's the form. And what I will say is that the SBA is organized to process applications from for-profit organizations, and the application looks like that, right? So you will see it looks like a very for-profit application. And as a result, there is a ton of confusion about how we as nonprofits should really fill out the form. Everybody is still, like guidance is still coming out, but we are providing some suggestions. And here we go, I'll walk through it. So the field asks for your business legal name. Our suggestion is to use what's on your articles of incorporation and your IRS form. So the general gist of this is to always make sure that things match your official filings, because you don't want there to be a technical error, especially when dealing with government entities. So if you use a DBA, a doing business as, make sure that you put that in the DBA trade name. Business address, make sure that that is the same as your what is used on your IRS 990. There is a field asking for your business TIN. That is our EIN from your IRS determination letter. So you can just use this slide as a little bit of a cheat sheet, and when you're filling in your application. There is a whole section on ownership, kind of right in the middle of the page. Since nonprofits don't have owners, and there's very little guidance, here's how we suggest approaching this. First name, we say leave blank or write NA. Last name, to put a 501c3 or nonprofit organization. Title, NA or none. Ownership. We have learned that for banks that are filling out this application online, sometimes it will let you put in 0. If it won't let you put in 0, put in 100. And then DOB, put in your organization's incorporation date. So that's how we are looking at that. Finally, some final reflections and considerations. This funding is not guaranteed. This is first come, first serve. Nobody really knows what that means. Nobody knows really what that means, or how they're deciding who gets what. But plan on as if you will not receive funding. Act quickly, but plan as if you will not receive funding. So continue to monitor cash flow, develop scenarios, and keep talking with your funders, your board, your constituencies, your audiences, your donors, your community, everybody about your position and what this pandemic is doing to your organization. In a way, there is no harm to apply. There is only upside, because there's no fee to apply, and there is no obligation to accept if you are approved. So in a way, there is no, like I said, there is no harm. I've kind of shared with you some of the glitches. We are expecting this rollout to be bumpy, and frankly, it's been, I'm surprised it's been as bumpy as we thought, and I don't expect it to smooth out anytime soon. So be persistent. This is new for everybody, and it came out so quickly. The National Council of Nonprofits, again, they are in Washington, and are on top of this, and they are updating every single day. The next, so I'm moving, I'm going off the Paycheck Protection Program, and I'm going to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the EIDL. The big question we get is, what's the difference between the EIDL and the PPP? The PPP are loans 2.5 times your previous 12 months payroll, up to a maximum of 10 million, and the PPP has a forgiveness clause in it. The EIDL loans max out at 2 million, and the amount that you can borrow is determined by the Small Business Administration, and it's expected to be paid back. It's a true loan, but it comes with an opportunity to receive an advance of $10,000. That does not have to be paid back. When you get that $10,000 though, and say you get that $10,000 advance, and then you get the Paycheck Protection Program, that $10,000 is credited against your award from the Paycheck Protection Program. The EIDL also has more stringent credit requirements in it than the Paycheck Protection Program, which has little or low credit requirements to receive it. So the EIDLX looks much more at your repayment ability and the credit worthiness in order to lend out to you. The next thing that I'll talk about is the Employee Retention Program. So this creates another tax credit of up to $5,000 a month per employee when certain conditions are met. So your organization had to experience a whole or partial shutdown, and had to see a drop in revenue of a certain percentage in the first quarter compared to the first quarter of 2020 compared to the first quarter of 2019. And then this tax credit you keep getting this tax credit, and like it's all kind of on a declining basis every quarter for a number of quarters in 2020. There is a line in the legislation that says for tax exempt organizations, the entity's whole operations must be taken into account when determining eligibility. We don't have guidance on what that means. So in a way, it's too early for us to really understand, how this is going to be carried out for nonprofits. But if you are not participating in the Paycheck Protection Program, this might be a program that's available to you. In a way, I would say this is something to keep our eyes on, since we don't know how this is going to be rolling out. Again, there are two really good resources for this that we are watching. One is the IRS. Really fantastic FAQs on this so far, as well as the National Council of Nonprofits. So again, the Employee Retention Program. And then finally, the last thing I'll talk about today is the deferral of payroll taxes. And this is kind of a simple one, right? It just says you can delay payment of your employer portion of payroll taxes in 2020. And instead of paying us this year, you can pay us equal halves by the end of 2021 and the end of 2022. So that you'd want to work with your payroll administrator on. And there's more information there at the National Council of Nonprofits. So with that, I'm going to take a sip of water and then answer questions.
All right, thank you so much, Sandy. Thank you all. I think we had a few more people join us since I started earlier. So if you missed it, the Q&A box is the place where you want to go in order to submit your questions. We do have a lot of questions already, which is wonderful. We wanted to save a good chunk of this webinar today to answering your questions. So if you still have a question outstanding, feel free to take this moment and plop it in the Q&A, not the chat box, but the Q&A would be great. And then we'll just go through these and answer as many as we can.
Great. So let's see. Would it be possible to discuss the emergency medical leave exemptions for organizations with less than 25 employees? I don't have that. I don't have that information directly on me, but typically I don't want to speak out of turn. Those resources that I have listed will have those answers. Typically, it's very much for, there's a lot of forgiveness for smaller organizations. So typically those are exempted, but I would say check those resources that I posted, because they have the regulations in them. Families First Act provisions apply to both part-time and full-time employees. I believe that there is a threshold for part-time employees. So yes, you have to take a look exactly at what the hour threshold is. Next question is, what are the guidances for 501c3s with university affiliations? So I believe this question is something along the lines, if you are say a museum or a theater that is like a program within a university, can you apply for the PPP? So if you are, my understanding is that you have to be an independent 501c3. So if you meet that requirement, then you are eligible to, and if you have under 500 employees, then you are eligible to apply, but you have to be your own 501c3. Which headcount should we put in the PPP application? Full-time plus part-time employees, or the headcount equivalent to the number of employees? It is the full-time equivalent, and there is a specific formula that is in the calculators. Our bank has not asked for any of the probably need documents. Should I send anyway? Also, as the managing director, the application uses my name as the contact, and they think I would not be held liable if something didn't go well. Any info on that? The application uses my name as the contact, and they think I would not be held liable. Your name, so the contact information, I believe you're asking about the contact, like the contact information should be the person who is going to manage the loan. So that should be a person's name. So that's the right thing to do. If you're already talking to your bank and they didn't ask for it, I would not submit it. But I would say trust your banker on this one. Yeah. Our bank has also said to include the 1099 info contradicting the latest guidance. On this, I would say trust on this. I'm not going to go against your banker on this. I'm just sharing with you what we have read in the latest guidance, but I am not going to go against your banker. Please clarify that independent contractors 1099 are not employees, W-2, and therefore nonprofits with independent contractors cannot participate in the payroll protection program. That is not, so if you have, as we read the guidance that came out in the original legislation, it's said to include 1099s and W-2s. The guidance that came out from the Treasury Department and the SBA said that 1099s were not allowed. So only W-2s. So that is how we are interpreting that. So I know you're still getting to the EIDL, but when you do, how is the approved amount calculated? I assume we don't all qualify for the $10,000 advance. I do not know the underwriting formula for the EIDL, so I can't answer that information. I'm really confused about the EIDL. Is the $10,000 a grant or an advance? The $10,000 is an advance that does not have to be repaid. So it's not really. It does not have to be repaid. Are there issues with applying for both the EIDL and the PPP? We jumped in on the EIDL and already applied and are currently working with our bank on the PPP. what I understand is that if you take the $10,000 from the EIDL and you get the PPP, the $10,000 will be subtracted from your PPP. That is our understanding. I would say ask your banker what their understanding is. In your PPP application, you have to say if you've applied for any other programs, and so they will ask you, they will ask and guide you on what to do it next. What we have read is that is exactly what I told you, that $10,000 will be subtracted from your PPP award. In terms of planning for not getting the PPP, if we have to keep our employees on payroll in order to be eligible, but we don't have the cash flow to do so, what do we do? If we do get approved, but have since laid off people, what then? I'll take the second part. So first, if we do get approved, but have since laid off people, what then? So the program says that you have to, you have to, essentially once the origination, from the origination of the loan, and then to 8 weeks after, that's the period of the program. So you can rehire at the loan origination date and still qualify for that PPP program. If you have to keep your people in order to be eligible, don't have the cash flow to do so. So I think this is a problem or an issue that people are facing. The way that I've heard it asked before is that we've laid off people. Can we rehire? Do we have to rehire them to qualify for the PPP? And the answer is yes. On the EIDL again, what documentation will they require for reporting? Let me check my cheat sheet here. So it is a full underwriting process. So anything that it's like getting a regular loan. So they are looking for payroll cost. They will look, at debt payments, accounts payable, extraordinary expenses caused by the disaster, and the SBA will determine your eligibility. I can't speak to what they are looking for or the formula that they're going to use to determine eligibility or amount, but payroll costs, fixed debt payments, accounts payable, extraordinary expenses caused by the disaster. Great. Let's see, are there grants available for nonprofits through the SBA? Not that I am aware of. Do you have to pay payroll taxes to receive ERP? I would assume so, yes. If for the ERP, if 1/3 of your business comes from teaching classes to the public and you cannot do that, does that count as a partial shutdown? I would think so. How do rotating employees like actors factor into this? We will not be hiring them back as we canceled our shows, but they have skewed our payroll numbers very high, which would make it impossible for us to use 75% of the funds for payroll purposes. So if these are seasonal employees, and I'm assuming that they are, there is a specific calculation for seasonal employees, and that's where you want to go to the AICPA calculator, because they have a great, like they have that all programmed into their calculator for seasonal employees. For the ERP, that is something that is still coming out. We do not have guidance on how to access that. I suspect that will be through your payroll process, like your payroll folks. Can we include all or a portion of our liability insurance? I don't know, Heidi, all or a portion of our liability insurance in the PPP? The PPP is specifically for payroll costs, interest on mortgage, rent, and utilities. So based on that guidance, I would say no, but check with the banks. For the EIDL, I am looking at it, if that's an accounts payable, perhaps. So, Doug, on the question about best guess for timing of the EIDL $10,000 advance, oh goodness. So there's some that say that it is a matter of days. So we are waiting to see, how quickly those get processed. How can Wells Fargo shut down applications when the rules and regs aren't finalized? I have no idea. I mean, that is their choice. I don't attempt to speak to them. PPP, businesses can be eligible for to be forgiven for up to 100% of the loan if employees retrain employees. Are there rules to reducing employees' hours? Yes, there are. So there is something along the lines that there is in a way a penalty if employee hours are reduced by a certain amount, but there is a little bit of forgiveness that they can be reduced by a little bit, right? Our bank gave us their own forms to fill out, not the link to the SBA application. Did you say the bank would apply on behalf of the organization? I did not say that, but that does not surprise me. Are the payroll taxes that we pay directly to the federal government considered part of payroll costs for PPP? No, only state and local tax. If you apply to the EIDL and get the 10,000 advance and then you pay off the EIDL early, do you still get to keep the 10K, or is there a prepayment penalty? I do not know if there is I don't believe that there's a prepayment penalty, but I would think that, ask the borrower, but one would not think so. If you only have independent contractors, can you apply for the PPP? As we are reading the guidance, no. We applied for the EIDL, but only have an application number, haven't heard back. We also applied for the PPP with our local bank. Should we have received notification from the EIDL, or is this typical? That is typical. If we receive PPP, can we reduce wages of employees and still receive forgiveness? I would say this gets to the calculation factor. Like it looks at average monthly payroll over time, and so you would have to look at, does your average monthly payroll reduce? So they're looking to kind of keep people paid and employed. Do we have a sense of turnaround time on applications? No, we do not. Does the amount of average monthly payroll need to be very exact? I would say we would want it to be really, we want it to be exact, because they're going to be looking at the amount of payroll tax that you've paid to the IRS. So they're looking for it to be exact. For the PPP, can you use more than 75% for payroll, or is it the max? No, you can use more. For organizations whose operating budgets are much greater than 2020 than they were in 2019, will lenders lend based on the year ahead or only on the previous year? They are looking at the payroll cost. That's a really good question. No one's asked me that question yet, and so I have to say I don't know. Let's see. Some of our personnel have signed payment contracts for performances that have been canceled. Can those be factored into the PPP application? Some of our personnel have been signed payment contracts. They have signed contracts. So if they're they're contract employees, and they're not W-2 employees. So I would say that, are they so the PPP is really looking for W-2 employees, right? So, and it's really looking, That's a tough one. I mean, that's really, we're looking at, you know, W-2 employees here for the PPP. We also put our app in for PPP and like EIDL as soon as we could. Looks like PPP will make more sense for us. Is there somewhere we go to discuss the EIDL? Just got a number. I would say just call the lender. You can always say no to it, right? When it comes. We are using our 2019 numbers for PPP figures, or should we be trying to get our 2020 numbers figures to date? So you have to use like 12 months to calculate your average monthly payroll. And so you're going to need to kind of look to do backward looking. And there's a couple ways that so you're going to need like your 2019 numbers. And then your current numbers. So I strongly advise you to go to those calculators and they will walk you right through it. If something was entered slightly incorrectly in an already submitted application, do you have to wait for it to be rejected for info to be corrected? That depends on your bank. Banks are pretty, I've heard of a couple instances where things have been immediately, like kind of immediately within a day or so, kicked back and told, no, we can't. You need to correct this. For rent and utilities covered by a loan and included at forgiveness at 25%. It appears as if we don't actually calculate our costs correct. This is the 0.5 and the 2.5 loan calculation. Yeah, you're right. Yep, that's exactly what the 0.5 is. Yep. These are W2 on a per service. Okay, so that I'm looking at this last question was from the person who was talking about the folks who were contract employees. That's a tricky one. I mean, the intent of this program is to keep people on payroll. I don't know if they will go so far as to say, you know, keep people on future payroll. Who determines eligible expenses for the EIDL, the Small Business Administration?
Okay, wow, that was quite the rapid fire, Sandy. Thank you. I think we answered 42 questions in 20 minutes, so that was like 30 seconds a pop. Thank you all. I'm going to keep it open just for a second here because I know you were probably listening to the answers to a lot of those questions as Sandy was doing her rapid fire, and we may even have some additional questions to go ask other people from this. So thank you for kind of giving us an insight to your business model and your operating as we go back and do that as well. The thing that I would say too is that this is the first of 4 modules. So Sandy and Nonprofit Finance Fund for the Mass Cultural Council has put together a series of webinars to support our organizations in taking advantage of these, obviously these federal stimulus programs, but also looking down what the effect of closure has on for cash flow, building scenarios, and making difficult decisions. And so those will be starting very soon. When you registered for today, hopefully you used our SurveyMonkey tool and saw the other webinars that we have for you as well. If you didn't, we do have that in the chat box, and so you could register for that. I will say each of our webinars have been designed for a very specific audience. So we have one set of 4 webinars for our organization that own facilities, have paid staff, and have a tremendous amount of debt. We have another group for our organizations with facilities, staff, and minimal usual debt. We have another group for our organizations with no facilities but paid staff, which I know a lot of you are here today. And then we also have a whole cohort for organizations that are all volunteer because there's additional considerations to have there. Maybe not so much of this payroll protection program as we talked about here today, but a business model and important cultural programming and public value nonetheless. And so, Sandy, if in our closing moments here, could you just give us an overview of your 3 webinars that are coming soon?
Yeah, thanks, Michael. Yeah, so the next webinar is cash flow. And so we will be working with thinking about, during this time, how do we think about using cash flow in the short term as a management tool and a communication tool? So if any of you have done cash flow with NFF or others before, we typically look at cash flow over a year. We will be really looking at cash flow over how do we use it over the next 12 to 13 weeks and during really a short term as a short-term tool. The next webinar we'll do is around scenarios and budgeting, and really thinking about the like scenarios on the impact of social distancing, and then just like the lack of cash in the market, and thinking about what it means for us when we think about re-engaging in the market, in commerce, if you will, and what that means for us to start up again. And the last thing will be bringing it all together. The name of this program is Safe Harbor, and that was that was really born out of a conversation that we had with Anita Walker at the head of Mass Cultural Council, and thinking about what it means for us as organizations to get to a safe place while we wait out this crisis, because we don't know when it will end, but we do need a way of being able to being able to kind of shore up and hunker down, so that we can get ready to emerge, emerge and reconstitute our organizations. So those are our next 3 topics.
Great, thank you, Sandy. And I will say for all of us on the call, those series of support and webinars are open to any nonprofit organization in Massachusetts. So we are making this service available to any organization. The organization does not have to be a current grantee of the Mass Cultural Council. So if you are on the board or volunteer or know of another organization that could benefit from this, which I'm sure there are many out there, we can have up to 500 people on a call at once. So this is something that we've designed for every cultural nonprofit in Massachusetts to take advantage of. So feel free to send that SurveyMonkey link out. I had a few questions about the slide decks and all of that. So you can actually use Kaylin's link right now. That's the advantage of this being the webinar later in the day. We already have it built out for you. Using that, you can download a copy of this PowerPoint. You can download a copy of Sandy's template that she mentioned, and all the links that she's mentioned today, you can access it right away. You also notice that there are 3 additional empty folders, and those will all be filled with additional resources and materials, a lot of take-home planners, a lot of guides, and a lot of resources that will be coming your way in the days ahead. Any last questions? We'll answer them here. Let's see. Where are my questions? Any financial support anywhere for employees who have the 1099 distinction? So the PPP is opening on Friday for independent contractors and gig economy workers. So on the 10th, it's supposed to open to gig economy workers and independent contractors. So so that should be made available. The PPP form purpose of loan says elect more than one among lease, utilities, other. If we have no building office, what would we include under other? To select more than one item for this, I don't know. So we have not gotten guidance on what that means, and as soon as we get guidance, we will upload it to our website. Okay, so that's wonderful. We are going to download this, and then you will get an email shortly after to be able to see today's presentation, and of course you can sign up for other webinars that we have coming up soon. So thank you all. We really appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. We know you're making very difficult decisions on your path forward. If there's anything that you feel Mass Cultural Council specifically can help you with that we haven't started doing already, please let us know. We're always trying to find new ways to support our field in any way that we can. We know that right now it's a complete challenge, and we are going to need arts, culture, humanities, and sciences in more and different ways than we've used them before after all of this is over, and it will be over soon. So thank you all for joining the call today, and have a great rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.